Over the weekend, my friend texted me and told me she was in a lot of pain, and she said it was the back of her left hip, her butt. She said piriformis, sciatic nerve. Uh, she knows enough that that's where her pain was, but she knew that if she went to a doctor, they would just inject her, and that would be it. So she contacted me. Now I've known her for over 10 years, which is important because I was allowed to kind of experiment with her and she trusts me. I wouldn't do this necessarily. Well, maybe I did. I didn't do anything extreme, trust me. But I just knew I could experiment with her and she'd be completely fine with it. And I could videotape her a little bit, which was good because now I can show you the video. So she's very easygoing, and that's important. She just goes with the flow. She's never upset, at least not like that I can see, and I've known her for a long time. She used to teach dancing with me. Well, she still teaches, I don't, but that's how I know her. Great dancer. She's in Bogota, Colombia. She's obviously here in New Jersey. But she's just a nice person, nice and relaxed, and she has a pretty high pain threshold. So for her to contact me, she really had to be in pain. So I went to see her at the old dance studio, and I could see she was already there when I walked in. And when she got up off the seat, you could see she couldn't really even get up because the pain was too intense. And then she kind of had to just limp as she was walking. You could see she was really in a lot of pain. And so I'm going to show you some pictures because some of the pictures tell you exactly what's going on. So first picture is starting from the ground up. All right. If you look at her right leg, you can see her right tibia is turned out. It's externally rotated. You see this all the time in the left AIC pattern. A right tibia that is externally rotated, and thus a right foot that is usually supinated and externally rotated. That's occurring at the tibia. Tibia and foot are externally rotated and turned out. Now, I'm going to go up the line a little bit. And then you can see her right hand that's just how she was standing. And I immediately saw that, well, her right hip is slightly higher than her left hip. Completely normal again in the left AIC pattern. If your pelvis is over to the right side, your right hip should be slightly higher. Completely normal. That's normally what you're going to find. And I know some people will say, well, my left hip is higher. That just means you probably have a little extra compensation going on. Doesn't mean it's a big deal, but it just means you have extra compensation. So everything I say right now for this video may not apply to you. It does eventually apply to you because underneath you're still just a basic left AIC, right BC pattern, but you probably just have compensation on top of that, which means that what I did with this person probably can't be done with you immediately because she's in a different situation. She's just in a basic old pattern. All right, so you can see her right hip is slightly higher than her left. And then was there another one? Okay. Now, so she was in a lot of pain, and what I did to get her out of pain immediately, well, pretty quickly, was I just wanted to reposition her body without doing a PRI technique. But in reality, was I doing a PRI technique? Of course I was, because I was reversing the position that she was living in. So here she is lying down. I have a towel underneath her right hip and a towel underneath her left posterior rib cage, kind of left shoulder, but a little bit lower than the left shoulder. What did that do? Well, I know if she's in the left AIC pattern, her pelvis is oriented to the right. So I put a towel underneath her right hip to orient her pelvis to the left. So this is what I did in order to derotate her, because I know she's rotated in one particular way through her pelvis and her rib cage, and that rotation is called the left AIC, right BC pattern. So I just did the opposite. I put a towel underneath her right hip to rotate her pelvis to the left, which put her into, well, my attempt was to put her into a right AIC pattern. So the opposite, which means it's confusing, but the right AIC pattern is when your pelvis is turned to the left. Okay, so that's what I did. I put a towel underneath her right hip to make it higher than the left. So her left hip had to drop down. It didn't really drop down, but that's the perception of it. down and back, actually. So it would be more of like her right hip moved forward, her left hip moved back because of the towel. So we oriented her pelvis to the left. Then I put a towel underneath her left posterior rib cage to rotate her torso to the right, because in the left AIC right BC pattern, the upper body, the torso, is in a perpetual state of rotation to the left in order to stay straight. Because this is my right side. If my pelvis turns to the right and my lumbar spine turns to the right, my body would be facing this way, and I'd walk around in circles. So not to walk around in a circle to the right, I have to twist from here up, puts the left shoulder higher than the right, and my head has to turn to the left. And now you are in the left AIC, right BC pattern to stay straight. It is compensatory. The torso rotation is compensatory for the orientation of the pelvis below it. That's what you got to keep in mind. All right, so I just put her in this position, and finally she could lie down on her back without pain. Every night she was going to sleep, the only way she could stay out of pain was by bending that left hip and the left knee and keeping it like with her leg towards her. Well, actually, you'll see it in the picture, but she could not lie down flat without pain, so she always had to put herself in a weird position to ease the tension and ease the pain. So in this position, she could actually lie comfortably. The reason I did that, again, was simply to show her that her pain was not because there was anything wrong with the hip. There wasn't. There was an underlying pattern of rotation, orientation of the pelvis, and counter-rotation of the torso, which is the compensation, that was causing the pain. It was restricting her ability to breathe into her rib cage without using her neck. It drives me nuts. I don't look at Instagram much, and because it drives me nuts. There are a lot of people on Instagram who do not understand posture restoration whatsoever. And I'm not saying I'm an expert, but I know enough that is not a biomechanical issue that PRI is trying to address. Anyone who thinks or is describing it in terms of simply biomechanics and says thus it's like every other system out there, and it's not a system, it's an explanation of how humans literally live. It's saying, it's based, people's like, oh, this is confusing, I don't trust, maybe their theories aren't correct. What is the theory? You as a human are asymmetrical. That is not a theory, that is a fact, it's in the research. You have a bigger right diaphragm and a smaller left diaphragm. That's just open the body, you'll see it. It's not the other way around. You're not symmetrical. Bigger right diaphragm, asymmetrically oriented with the organs. Your eyes, your brain pays attention to the right side of the visual world more than the left. Your brain processes right peripheral vision more than the left. Not a theory. It's in the literature. I've done videos on this. Not a theory. It's just how you are. And when you are like that, that is what we're treating. The fact that you are built to be like that, which means you're a right dominant human. There is no theory. That's just how you exist. So what do? We give you a strategy. We give you a way to get out of that pain that you're in because that pattern has become too prevalent. You've lost your left side. Gina lost her left side completely, and you'll see in the testing. She uses her neck for everything, and that's what it comes down to. It's not biomechanics. It is biomechanics, but that's not the main issue. It's sensory and it's respiratory. So if you see people saying PRI is like any other system, you know they don't really know what they're talking about because they don't understand what a pattern is. They don't understand what PRI really is based off of, which is just how humans exist. Right side of the world, we love to look at and hear from. We like to stand on our right leg because we have a bigger right diaphragm, so it makes it easier to breathe. That's really it. And that turns into predictable patterns called right orientation and left compensation to stay straight and walk. And that's normal if you're on your right foot, but if you go to your left foot and you're still in the same position, that's the problem. But it's still not a biomechanical issue. She does not have a biomechanical issue. It's become biomechanical in a sense, but the main issue underneath is that she cannot stop using her right neck to breathe. And that is the issue. So how did I get her pain to go away? By doing an exercise? No, absolutely not. I just put her body in a new position so her brain could process respiratory mechanics differently. Oh, and she relaxed. Her body relaxed. Doesn't mean she's stable. Does she have to do PRI techniques? Yes, obviously, because she has to learn how to reuse her left hip and her left leg and other stuff. But at its core, this was a respiratory issue. For some reason, because of life, she got too oriented to the right, to the point that she stopped using her left. She sits all day at a bank. She has to wear high heels. She's right-handed. She's human. It happens. But it's still not biomechanical at its core. There are biomechanical implications, but it's a sensory input and respiratory issue at its core that then becomes a biomechanical issue because you become limited in ranges of motion, which I'm going to show you next. All right, so I get pretty passionate about that and heated about that because it's being so misrepresented, particularly on Instagram, and it drives me freaking nuts. Because there are people that need this. The ability to breathe without your right neck involved can be life-changing. I had someone send me an email that their son is finally out of a wheelchair because of the techniques on my website. And by the way, all I treated her with, and she walked out without pain, but that's going to be in part 2, was the same techniques on my website. You just have to know how to do them. And I'm sorry, unless you've taken a lot of courses, you don't really know how to do them. And I mean a lot of courses. You have bits and pieces and kind of understand how to do them, but you don't get the big picture. So you wouldn't know how to treat her because there was no position. I had to constantly change her positions to kind of adjust things to make her feel fine, so that position wouldn't cause her any discomfort. But that's because I've taken 27 courses over 8 years. Most people can't do it. There are some, obviously, but a lot won't be able to do that. So you never take it personally that you don't know what's going on because this is not your discipline. This is not what you do for a living. I probably couldn't do your job. So there's no way you're going to understand everything I did. So everything is so precise that I'm not going to explain everything, but I just want people to realize that this is a discipline and a science. It's not that, give me what's the one exercise I should do to help my piriformis? It will never work like that. I'm sorry. And if you think it is, then you're in the wrong place and you're never going to get better because it's always a total body issue. Always a total body issue. No one part of your body lives in isolation from the other parts. And it will always come, if you do not fix or improve your ability to expand your right chest wall so that you can expand your right rib cage without using your neck, you will never get better long term. You might cover up some problems, but you're never going to get better long term. I can guarantee you that. All right. Now, so what did I do? Testing. Okay, so here would be her right leg. Now, her right leg, this is the adduction drop test. Her right leg is really tight. She can feel the tension. All right. And it would adduct. That thing will go down, but and you can see she's grimacing. She's in pain. She's feeling it. She's feeling the pain. That's by me putting the right leg down. That's a passing test in my mind because it does go down, but there's tension. That's why it wouldn't go down all the way. I don't want to hurt her. This is abduction, does not go high enough. I'm telling her, her brain is saying, I am not going to let you off that right leg because your left side is too unstable. Now here's her left leg adduction, and it goes nowhere. Her left leg is not going to go anywhere, not going anywhere. She is a left AIC pattern. You could call her possibly PEC, but I'm just going to say she's a left AIC pattern. All right, now her right shoulder internal rotation is not bad. Again, she's a very relaxed person, goes with the flow. She's got pretty good shoulder internal rotation down to about 60 degrees. It's not bad, 60, 65. Now this is after what we did. So now her testing, she now has full shoulder internal rotation. There was no restriction. And now her left leg adducts and it's fine. So how did I get those tests to change so that she went neutral? So let me take you back to the picture, the position that she was in originally. Now, all I did here, because I knew she wasn't in pain when I had her here, all I did was start to add a little bit of help with the ball. So the ball gives internal rotation sense of the femurs, of the upper legs. Her pelvis is oriented to the left, and I had her squeeze the ball with her left knee, which should give her some internal rotation and adductor sense of the left inner thigh, while she's sensing her heels, particularly the left heel. What is that doing? It is stabilizing her pelvis. A lot of people, when their pelvis is unstable, their one or both legs will end up too far out, sometimes both. But the more the leg turns out, and this is what happens with the left piriformis, the left leg has to externally rotate. So when the pelvis is turned to the right, the left leg externally rotates and abducts to stay straight. In that position, let me show you. Oh, I have a picture. Oh, and here we go. So in that position, the left piriformis, what you're looking at now, and there's a sciatic nerve because the piriformis runs right on top of it. That's why the pain is often comes together. That left piriformis attaches to the inside of the pelvis, the inside of the sacrum, and travels onto the left femur. And this is my left hand, and this will be external. It externally rotates that left leg. That's kind of its job. And abduction. So abduction, external rotation. And that's the position, that's the compensatory position of the left leg because of the pelvis that's rotated to the right on top of it. Over time, when you become very, very unstable, you've lost your left hamstring, your left adductor, and your left anterior glute medius. You've left your ability to stabilize on that left side. Your body weight is staying over to the right. You're breathing with your neck. You're breathing with your lower back. You've lost your left diaphragm. Over time, you could end up with a overactive and tight and painful left piriformis and or a sciatic pain because of the compensatory position that the left leg is constantly stuck in because of everything I just talked about. So again, what I did is we put the ball between her knees, squeezed, sensed the left heel, squeezed with the left knee, and then all she did was breathe into her right upper chest, and that is what caused the test to change. She now her hip flexors turned off on the left, that's why she could adduct, and her right abdominals, right rib cage, right lat, probably right side of her neck, changed or inhibited, turned off, so that she could actually internally rotate her right shoulder. So she has, but this is what happened. So after that, what I treat her with, we don't really treat. You don't treat the pain, you're establishing a new pattern, or in this phase, what we're really doing is mostly inhibition of her old way of getting air into her body, which was by using the neck and her lower back. We just inhibited that. And what techniques did I use? So that she could actually walk out without pain. She could get up off of the table without pain at the end of the session. She was walking completely normally, and she kept kind of, oh, yeah, the pain's gone. The techniques on my website, those techniques. Now, I know how to do them because I've taken so many seminars, and I've been doing this for 8 years. Most people do not do them correctly. There's just no way you're going to do them correctly. That's why you have to find help. Sorry, this is, like I said, this is a discipline and it's a science. You have to put years and years and years of study into it to understand it and do it well. That's why most people never really get there. It's no different than dancing. Someone who danced for 15 years, it takes dedication and you have to be kind of obsessed to get really, really good at it. And that's really what it takes for PRI also, because you have to relearn everything you thought you knew doesn't apply because you didn't realize people are stuck in a pattern. So she has a breathing issue. She cannot stop breathing with her neck. And even when I was doing some of the techniques with her, like the left side lying right glute max, which is on my website, you could see that, so this is my right side. She's lying there. She's got the towel underneath the left side. She can feel her left abs. She can feel her right glute. Sometimes the right hip would cramp a little bit, but you could see why. When she was breathing and that right arm was out in front of her, which it should be because that right hand and right arm have to be perfectly positioned, even when she breathes, this is happening. And I showed her, I stopped it at one point because I could see her as she would inhale, her neck would turn on, her upper trap. You could see that the activity bring that shoulder up. So I showed her, I flipped her on her back, redid her shoulder internal rotation, and she had lost some internal rotation. So what I was trying to get across was every time she breathes and her neck or her shoulder does this, her right shoulder does this, and her neck turns up, that's her brain trying to still use her right neck to get air into the right side of the rib cage, because she doesn't have enough stability through her left side yet for it to not want to do that. She can't use her left diaphragm appropriately because there's no pelvis on the left side, no stability on the left side to provide support for the left diaphragm to work. So she has to use the right side. But if you use the right side, you can't get off the right side and you can't get to the left side. Listen to that again a bunch of times, but really my whole channel is about that. So she lost internal rotation of her right shoulder, not completely, but about 10 degrees after I stopped her because I saw her using her right neck. What did I do? She was still lying face up. I put my hands on her left rib. She exhaled. I pushed her ribs down on the left, not on the right, on the left into internal rotation. Had her breathe in once. Air went here again, retested, and she had full internal rotation of the right shoulder again. The point being, anytime she starts to overuse her neck to breathe in, it will pull her to the right. This is my right. And now she's back into that pattern at least a little bit. So she has to train herself to be able to shift to the left, stay on her left side, and breathe into the right side of her rib cage without her neck being involved. Now it's tough because she sits all day. She has her challenges in life like we all do. But that's the game plan for her. And I know it'll work because she walked out without pain. And that's the thing. That's it. That's how it all works. It's always going to come back to the neck. Like I said, people on Instagram and I don't know on YouTube because I don't look for it on YouTube and I don't search anything, sports or working out related. But this is what PRI is about. If she cannot keep getting air into the right side of her rib cage, you could work on biomechanics and every type of weightlifting exercise and every type of physical therapy exercise. But if this doesn't stay open and accepting air, nothing will work from my perspective. You can't just weightlift your way out of it. You can't stretch your way out of it because the origins were not in any of that. It has nothing to do with stretching. It had to do with her inability to open up the right side, to not use her neck to breathe, which means she can't get to her left side, which means she can't establish proper biomechanical activity on the left side. So as I said in the beginning, the origins are sensory and respiratory, and eventually over time they become biomechanical. But if you think you can treat it just biomechanically, nothing will change because your brain will breathe. It's going to breathe any way it can, and until you get it to not rely on the neck to breathe, and also rotate the torso, which it will start to do, and if you don't relearn how to use your right arm without the neck trying to control it, you will be limited in your ability to treat a left piriformis syndrome because the left piriformis at that point has no reason to turn off. It has no reason because you're still over to the right side and it still has to externally rotate that left leg. So hopefully that video has helped understand the big picture. Don't expect to understand it completely. If you just kind of get an idea of it, then you can start to understand what PRI is and what PRI is not, because most of what you see online and especially on Instagram and things like that is not what PRI is about. And it's not just like a system because it's not a system. It's explaining how humans actually stabilize, move, and breathe because of how our brain functions, how the brain itself is physically asymmetrical because of the asymmetries of our body, by how our brain works and by how our senses are integrated and how we have a biased sense of the world because of how we are biased. That is what it really is, in my opinion. And that's why trying to treat things biomechanically will not work if you do not take into account sensory biased input from the right side and respiration.